What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Troll Bro Dude, and we are back. This is part 2 of our 2-part series where we try to predict what will happen in the NBA this year. Returning once again, fresh off of on the Patreon episode we did last week, Rob conveniently said when we were talking Eastern Conference, and I was talking about how the Celtics are a thorn in my side. He said, the Warriors, everything always goes right for the Warriors. So I think that they have a potential to come out of the West again. And not to spoil, but I have to say, everything has not been going right for the Warriors over the past few days, Rob. That was an instantly freezing cold take.
Maybe I have some powers that I didn't know I had. I hope so. I just need to reverse jinx everything. I still weirdly think everything's going to be fine for the Warriors. We can talk about Draymond and the trades, and I mean, I hope they do trade him because they're not going to replace him. I think trading him for anything short of like a package that I frankly don't see happening would be a disaster for them unless the chemistry issues are truly untenable, and maybe they are. Yeah, it is very funny that, their second most important player just punched their like third or fourth most important player in the face.
Yeah, it's pretty instant bad timing, and the video comes out right after, and it makes it look 100 times worse.
It was bad.
Thoughts and prayers with the Warriors organization, the real victim of this situation, who will probably fire and press charges against the video guy who is paying $27,000 a month in rent in San Francisco so that he can afford to live there, and sold this video to TMZ so that he can, live a normal life. So, thoughts and prayers to Joe Lacob and the billionaire organization that is the Golden State Warriors, the real victims in this situation. But from a basketball perspective, I will say I think that they probably won't trade Draymond. Like, I think they'll wait until all this blows over. They'll do let's get it. Everyone gets together and we're great again. And Jordan and Draymond apologize, and he's going to take Jordan Poole under his wing and whatever, because Jordan Poole's going to get an extension in the next week is what we've been hearing. So Jordan Poole's locked in there. Now, I think that's probably what's going to happen, but there's at least a slight chance where they say, and kind of as Bill Simmons hinted at, like, this might be their way of like not having to pay Draymond, because as important as he was to that team, and as much as for some reason he thinks that they would rather trade Draymond than Clay, I do not agree with that. I think they would trade Clay. If this didn't happen, I think they would definitely trade Clay so they didn't have to pay him, because think about, like, at a certain point, you're not going to be able to pay all of them. You just can't. Right. Like, even with the Warriors and how they've spent and how they make all this money end over end every night, like, the repeater tax that you're going to get on that, like, at a certain point, you're not going to make money. And that's what the goal of these franchises are, especially the Warriors. So you're talking about luxury tax bills upwards of like $1 billion if they are signing Poole, and then the guys that they already have in the pipeline that they think are going to become really good in like Kuminga and Wiseman and Moody, and guys that we might not be super high on all of them, but the idea behind it is essentially between paying Clay the max, Draymond close to a max, super maxing Steph. Like, at a certain point, you're going to have to make the move. And I do think that eventually they were going to have to pick between this, and this would make it easiest, I guess is what I would say.
I do agree with that, but I also I feel like if anybody knows the value of Draymond Green on the basketball court, it should be the Warriors. You'd hope.
Yeah.
Like last year in the playoffs, I was arguing with all these people who were like, no, like Draymond's like terrible, or Draymond. And these are Warriors fans who are like, we should trade Draymond. Andrew Wiggins is better than Draymond. And like people, like actual like people like think that. Like, I'm sure Bill Simmons would probably say Andrew Wiggins is better than Draymond Green.
He's been hinting at it, because he keeps saying over and over, like, you can't trade Draymond, or you can't trade Wiggins for KD. He's too important to the team. And then I'm like, it's Kevin Durant.
Yeah, it's
literally
KD.
Kevin Durant.
Yeah, like I don't know. I mean, Draymond Green is just such a unique player. Like, we talked about this a little bit on the last pod, but all this stuff about like, oh, Ben Simmons can be Draymond Green. He really can't be, because there's only one Draymond Green. Like, he's a guy who can switch on the perimeter, but actually plays like an actual big man defensively in terms of anchoring the defense, providing some room protection, being like the backline communicator, all that sort of stuff. And the passing and playmaking on offense is super valuable. The screen setting, everything we know Draymond Green does. It's super valuable and it's really not replaceable. Andrew Wiggins is replaceable. Like I think he's good. He's proved me wrong. Kudos to him. He's still like a just good 3-and-D wing with a little bit of shot creation chops. Like you can get that elsewhere in the NBA. It'll cost you, but you can get that. There are no other Draymond Greens. And I think at the end of the day, they will have some sort of kumbaya session where they make him kiss Jordan Poole's foot or whatever, and bow down to Joe Lacob and all that sort of stuff, and they'll make it up. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely trade Clay between those two guys because I mean, I think Clay's always been overrated. I like Clay. I like his personality. Great shooter. Good defender. He's another guy who like you can get. I don't know. Prime Danny Green was 95% of Klay Thompson, maybe 90%. I don't know. And now off his injury, maybe he's better a year out, but he's also in his 30s and he suffered 2 very major, leg injuries. Like maybe he is never the same defensively. I would definitely trade Clay over Draymond, but I think this does give you an excuse as like an out to not pay Draymond. But I hope the Warriors do it again. I hope they trade him because they're just not. I don't think they'd be a championship level team without him.
Yeah, and look, I think the one reason why you might run into some sort of, I honestly even forgot about Wiggins. They have to pay Wiggins too. It's like crazy how many guys they have to pay. Like Wiggins is already on a max. I think his number isn't going to be quite a max, but it's going to be similar to what the max that he got was, which is like 27 million a year he makes or something, like 30 million a year. He'll get close to that on his next contract as well. And then we'll just hear every podcast. We'll talk about the TV deal and how no new contract could possibly be bad because of the TV deal.
Tyler Hero is underpaid, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just wait until that YouTube TV money comes in. That Hulu Live Sports money is going to make Tyler Hero Devin Booker. So don't worry about it, dude. But just kind of some general ideas as far as Draymond trades go. Like, I do still think they know the importance of Draymond. They understand, like, one of the reasons I think why they would be so resistant to trading Draymond is because this front office is actually the front office that drafted Draymond. And the thing that they love to do the most is tell people how smart they are, despite the fact that it's really just built on like Steph Curry being like one of the 10 greatest players of all time. And like they inherited that. But anyway, they love to talk about how smart they are. So I think the reason why they would never trade Poole is very similar. Huge hit for a late first round pick. Draymond, massive hit for a second round pick. And I think that they are going to be hesitant. They're going to try not to trade him. But if they were to explore trades, whether it's now or after the season, who knows? Maybe Draymond doesn't look quite as good this year. He has 2 years left on his deal, I believe. And he is he's up for an extension now, and they might have to come to that determination sometime in the next 6 months to a year, and this might speed up the process a little bit. But there was one trade that Bill Simmons suggested on his podcast that I just didn't get at all, which was Draymond to the Lakers, Russell Westbrook and the 2 picks to the Pacers, Miles Turner and Buddy Hield to the Warriors. So what did you think of that one, Rob?
I mean, for the Lakers, awesome. I mean, it's great. Draymond Green with Anthony Davis. Like Anthony Davis theoretically has enough shooting to cover for Draymond Green. In practice, maybe not. I mean, that's another thing where like it depends on Russell Westbrook is gone, so you could start like Pat Beverly, Kendrick Nunn, name a wing, I don't know, and LeBron, sure. Draymond, Anthony Davis, and like that's a really good starting lineup. It's much better than the one they have with Russ, but I don't know why the Warriors would do that. Like Buddy Hield is good, but he's super duplicative on their team. Like they're gonna have him and Clay and Wiggins and Poole and Steph. Like they don't need Buddy Hield at all, and I like Buddy Hield. And then it's really just Miles Turner for Draymond Green. Like again, I like Miles Turner. He's always injured. His shooting kind of isn't really there. He's great defensively. It's a downgrade for the Warriors, and I just don't get why they do that. Lakers, sure. Pacers, if they're getting picks, sure. But yeah.
And we also don't know what Miles Turner would look like in the Warrior system in a playoff series. We've only seen injured regular season Miles Turner, who is a very good defender, but is pretty much hurt all the time. And then in addition to that, like you said, Buddy Hield, a little bit redundant, especially when it's like you have Clay, Steph, and Poole as your backcourt rotation. Where does he really fit in? You're trying to put Moses Moody in, who's a bit of a 2-3 himself. I don't really see Buddy Hield's fit on that team. I wouldn't trade Draymond for Miles Turner unless we knew Miles Turner was going to become a better shooter and never get hurt like he always seems to. So I didn't really get it. I might even push back a little bit on the idea that Draymond's a good fit on the Lakers, because
Sure.
I think one of the things, like defensively, yes, I think that they would be incredible, of course. Having Draymond, LeBron, if he's actually locked in, and hopefully the same Anthony Davis. Maybe you can just win another title based on the strength of your defense. But I still think that at those other two positions, you would need a ton of shooting and probably not as much ball handling, but you would need like those Klay Thompson, Buddy Hield level shooters in order to make up for the fact that Draymond can't shoot threes anymore. LeBron always thrives with spacing around himself. And if we are to believe that Anthony Davis is not bubble Anthony Davis, he's a below average 3-point shooter. I just coming off the worst 3-point shooting year of his career, doesn't put up nearly enough volume of threes. Now, once again, maybe they can just build an amazing defense and none of the offensive stuff matters nearly as much. But I don't even love that fit for the. I kind of hate this trade for everyone but the Pacers.
I mean, if Hield goes to the Lakers somehow, and the Lakers send somebody else to the Warriors, but who do they have on their team? The whole issue is they have nobody on their team.
Exactly.
So, like Austin,
no one anyone wants. Yeah, like Kendrick Nunn, and and the Warriors aren't like, we're gonna pay more money into the tax in order to do this, which they would be if they were getting back those two guys as opposed to Draymond, because he actually makes less money than both of them combined, Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. So I just don't see a world where that kind of trade happens.
The other thing with Miles Turner is he's on the last of his deal. So if they wanted to keep him, they'd have to pay him as well, or it would just be a 1-year rental, which would make sense.
Exactly. So you would have, I think that there are a few teams out there that make a little bit more sense than that kind of trade. Now Draymond would love it. He would be united with LeBron. He would be in heaven. He absolutely loves LeBron. So we know that he would love that clutch guy. Like, of course it makes sense for the Lakers, but I just don't see that. The one team that I've had a few people tweet at me about this, the Suns are the most interesting team to me, because I don't know if they do it because the Suns and the Warriors might look at each other as like kind of rival teams right now. But you have the fact that the Suns have their own situation with DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder. Oh, I forgot about Jay Crowder. But then it gets a little bit complicated because DeAndre Ayton, once he is able to be traded in January, because like they could literally just go to Draymond and be like, you're not like, don't like, you're suspended 20 games or whatever, don't report. And then eventually it gets to the point where they can just tell him to sit out, and then they can trade him for DeAndre Ayton. It's a last minute push for the Suns to kind of make it into the just be championship contenders. As we said on the last episode, Chris Paul looks a little bit compromised. You have the salary is where it gets complicated if you want to include Jay Crowder, though, because Ayton actually makes more money than Draymond.
Yep.
You could figure out Draymond plus like a minimum guy and do Draymond for DeAndre Ayton pretty much straight up.
I wonder, I mean, if you're throwing an Ayton in there, which you'd probably have to do, I mean, do the Warriors flip Wiseman then, who's making a lot of money as the number 2 pick? I mean, if you have Ayton locked up for 4 or 5 years, is it 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, they don't need Wiseman at all. So
4 years.
Yeah. So that's a possibility. But the fit is definitely there. I mean, I think him on the Suns would be great with Ayton, without Ayton. Going super small, like maybe getting Draymond and pushing Ayton out allows you to restart Jay Crowder somehow, and maybe that gets him back on board.
Maybe.
I mean, it's a great fit, and the Suns should certainly be interested in trying to upgrade their talent and their defense. But yeah, I don't know. The salary is a thing. As we've discussed, the Warriors are not wanting to pay more, and Ayton is on the books for a number of years at a lot more money. I just don't know. I mean, could you cobble together, like, would Crowder plus some of the other pieces on the roster get you there? maybe like, do you have to trade Cam Johnson as well? That leaves you thin at like the guard spots. I think something could be worked out. They're definitely one of the teams that I would keep an eye on much more than the Lakers would love him, but I don't think the Lakers can get there. I think the Suns are definitely more interesting.
If I'm the Warriors, I'm just saying, or I'm sorry, if I'm the Suns, I'm just saying, look, you're trading an old Draymond you don't want to pay anyway. You know, I know we had our same issues with DeAndre Ayton here, but DeAndre Ayton's much younger. You're gonna like the Warriors have an opportunity to, you know, as valuable as Draymond is, I don't think that he is viewed around the league quite as much as like your average NBA nerd podcast it would view.
That's because most NBA front offices are still really dumb.
Yes, I agree. But I also think that people are a little bit weary of Draymond's age.
Sure.
They're a little bit weary of his next contract. They're weary that he might not be able to be a guy that plays late into his 30s and provide that kind of value. And the Suns are going to be making a push for next year because they realize that Chris Paul is a corpse. Yeah, he's an ancient man. He's 1800. No,
he looks old. He looks very old.
Yeah, he looks extremely old in preseason. So this is a push, a last second push. I honestly think this would be the closest thing to like a 1-for-1 swap that you could do in terms of value, because Ayton doesn't want to be in Phoenix, so they at least get out of that contract that they didn't want to pay in the first place. You save a little bit of money the next 2 years with Draymond and give yourself maybe a better chance to win the title with Devin Booker as the guy, Chris Paul as the second guy, Draymond as your defensive guy. And you still have Mikal Bridges. You still could hold on to Cam Johnson in this situation. You're not totally you're contending now, but you're not giving up all of your future to get this guy and get off the Ayton contract that you didn't want to sign in the first place. So I think that would be about as close to a 1-to-1 swap as possible. Maybe Wiseman goes to another team, Crowder goes to another team in the deal, and then we're sending guys to Golden State and we're sending guys to Phoenix. And if Golden State wants to save money in this situation, maybe they're taking back less salary when they move off of Wiseman, as you said. So I think that's the most interesting, logical, as close to 1-for-1 swap as we can get.
I like it. I'll throw one at you.
Okay.
I'll do a Bill Simmons mind meld, whatever he calls it.
How about this?
What would the Nuggets say? Aaron Gordon straight up for Draymond Green.
Wow. I love that.
I love it for the Nuggets.
I think the Warriors would say no, but I think that I think that as much as people view Aaron Gordon better than they did when he was in Denver, or I'm sorry, in Orlando, yeah. I think that a lot of it might just be like, well, it's like you have Jokic and like he can make a lot of people look way better, but they have Steph and Steph can make a lot of people look way better. But I don't know. If I'm the Warriors, I'm saying no to that. I love it for the Nuggets because I think that Draymond might be like the perfect guy to put next to Jokic and just make that work. Which is he would solve basically all the defensive concerns we've had about Jokic deep into the playoffs. And that would be a great 1-2 pairing. I think they have no draft picks they can trade. Basically, they're not. I don't think they're giving up Bones Highland.
Not with how he's played in preseason. No,
I don't think they're giving up Bones Highland. I don't think no one wants the Michael Porter Jr. contract. They don't have anyone who's quite valuable enough and young enough, unless like Zeke Naji is included.
Yeah, like you could do Zeke Naji and maybe like one of their recent first round guys like Peyton Watson or Christian Braun. But like, what do the Warriors need those guys for? I mean, they could theoretically flip them somewhere else, but like they already have their own young guys who are all more promising than Christian Braun and Peyton Watson.
Exactly. Like kind of going back to the Ayton thing with the Suns is like, I think the reason why they would do that deal is because then they can be like, oh, we did it again. We got someone who can help us win now. And then in the future, he'll be a part of this new core that we have that will win 45 games when Steph's old.
Yeah. Spurs, the Spurs. We are the new Spurs.
They meant the DeMar DeRozan Spurs.
Yeah, the LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan, Rudy Gay Spurs. I like the Suns one. The Nuggets one, I just don't think will happen. But I mean, I think Nuggets people have talked about how perfect Draymond would be there, and
Amazing.
I mean, Aaron Gordon is like, I think you could argue, like as you mentioned, like yeah, I mean, he's kind of underwhelming as like a first or second option. But in the Warriors, I mean, he's behind Steph and Clay and Poole and maybe even Wiggins. Like he's the fourth or fifth guy. He does know how to cut. He can he can help defensively. He can play into like their small ball stuff. I think they would need something else, and I don't know if the Nuggets would be willing to give something else considering Draymond's age and like him having 1 year left.
Yeah, and the Gordon trade was a win for them, all things
yes,
considered.
yeah.
They gave up like a future late first round pick and Gary Harris, who's just always injured, and I don't even
RJ Hampton, who's terrible.
Who's horrible. We talked about this in the last episode. So.
Somehow, multiple RJ Hampton references.
Only on this podcast could we slander RJ Hampton in back-to-back episodes. But I like that one if you could make something work. I still think the Warriors are like, we want to contend now. Why are we helping the Nuggets? Why are we helping the Suns? Like, I think that's the reason why they don't pull off these trades. But the 8-1, you can at least talk yourself into like Ayton and Draymond probably at this point moving forward are about the same level of player. Like, and Ayton at least has a theoretical upside to get better, even though I think he's pretty much developed fully at this point. But like, he could get 10% better or whatever, and Draymond could get worse. So you could kind of talk yourself into that. As far as the other team that I think in the West that I don't think are contenders with or without Draymond is the team that has been lurking after him forever. He's been the apple of Damian Lillard's eye, the Portland Trail Blazers, because Dame thinks that the reason why the Warriors are so successful is because of Draymond. And don't get me wrong, he's a big part of it. But let's be honest here. The real difference is that Damian Lillard is not Steph Curry. He's an amazing player, but he's not. And especially at this age, it looks like might have lost a little bit of a step, maybe half a step.
Dame, and he's younger than Dame. And he's younger than Steph Curry too, which is crazy.
By like 2 or 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, he came in, Lillard was 2012 draft. Steph was 2009.
How old Steph's 34?
33, 34. Yeah, I don't know. He looks so good.
And then Dame is 30. Damon, that will be their name together.
Damon Stoudemire.
Portland Trailblazers legend. I think he's 32, if I remember.
He is. Yeah, he's maybe only a year younger than Steph, a year or two.
Yeah. He's not that much young because Dame did 4 years in college and was older when he came into the draft. But even though he came in 3 years after Steph, I believe. So like this move is basically only happening. This kind of move only can happen if the Warriors are like, let's pivot. Let's do the young guy thing plus Steph. Like Steph and Clay, really. Let's usher in the next era. Like if we're trading Draymond, this era of the Warriors might be over anyway. Maybe we should try to like reposition ourselves and build around Steph in a different way. So the idea I came up with was Jeremy Grant, Shaedon Sharpe, and a first round pick for Draymond Green.
I just don't think, I mean, unless Lillard is like bullies the Blazers into it, I don't think they make that deal. And he already signed an extension, so he has no leverage. Otherwise, I mean, I like it for the Blazers because I don't think Jeremy Grant is particularly great. I mean, he's fine. Shaedon Sharpe is whatever. I mean, I think Grant would, again, like Aaron Gordon, and it's funny because, Gordon replaced Grant in Denver. I think they're kind of similar archetype of players.
Yeah.
I think he'd be good in Golden State and would help them still like contend, kind of this year and going next couple of years. But I don't know. I mean, I think that the Blazers would... Yeah, it depends how they feel, and it depends on how much they want to please Dame, which, I mean, according to their offseason is probably a lot because all their moves make no sense unless it's like, we just want to get Damian Lillard in the playoffs one last time.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, their ethos. So in that case, maybe they do it. I guess maybe then it comes down to how the Warriors feel about Sharpe because, again, they have so many guards. It's like they already have Moody, and they already have Poole if they do sign him to an extension. Yeah, I mean, that's the issue with the Warriors is unless they actually offload some of their young guys, I mean, I don't know where they add to their young guys. I mean, the guy who I think they could add is like a younger point guard. I guess Sharpe is kind of a point guard. I view him more as like an off guard, but
he's like a wingy type. He's like a wing type guard. Like, I mean, super athletic. Yeah. I guess the upside is tantalizing for some teams that are trying to rebuild, but like, I mean, look, I can't lie. I haven't watched a ton of Shaedon Sharpe because I don't believe he exists. But
Um,
but at the same time, like the idea behind this is like once again, compete now, get
yeah,
another prospect in the building, whatever. Like, I mean, unless they want to be like, we want to be really good right now, so you got to give us Jeremy Grant and Josh Hart, and then we'll figure out like some way to move around some money so that we're not taking back a bunch. But like Josh Hart and Grant combined make a little bit more than Draymond, so you can basically just send out like a Wiseman or a Dante DiVincenzo or whatever when he can be traded, and kind of figure it out from there. Maybe that's a little bit more appealing to them because then they get 2 rotation guys back for him. But that was the one deal that I could think of where like the Blazers get to try the Dame Draymond thing with a much more compromised version of Dame and a somewhat more compromised version of Draymond from his peak. And just prove to Dame that the reason that they're not winning is not because they didn't have the right guys around him. It's
the more
because
we're talking about, the more I'm kind of talking myself into Blazers doing it because
I think they would.
their moves are incomprehensible this summer, except for just trying to please Dame. It's just, I mean, they're going to be fine, but like, where are they going? They're heading straight for like the 9th seed or 10th seed or
Well,
whatever.
we'll get to that when we talk about this on here. So we will talk a little bit more about that. But those were the teams that I thought could be realistic. Once again, maybe they don't want to trade them in the West. I haven't really like, I haven't thought about a ton of other teams being interested, but the funny one to me, just like the LOL, this would be great, would be if they just went to the Nets and they were like, give us Ben Simmons. We'll rehab Ben Simmons. We will bring Ben Simmons back. Give us basically what you got for James Harden, the Sixers' future first-round pick in like 2027 or whenever that is. I mean, I think it is 2027. Yeah, we traded our 2027 first. Give us Seth Curry. We'll have Steph and Seth, although this does get into a money issue problem again because Seth and Ben combined make like $40 million a year, which is crazy. 15 million more than Draymond does. So that there is that issue. But you can basically say we can rehab Ben Simmons just like we did with Andrew Wiggins. We can get another. I know we already talked about this with Buddy Hield, but like the Steph and Seth thing, it would just be funny to me. I mean, having his Seth shooting like Buddy Hield's a good shooter, Seth's an even better shooter, better ball handler, would be interesting to me certainly. And then the Nets can finally have to admit that Kevin Durant isn't as good as Steph Curry when Draymond goes there and doesn't and they don't win a title.
Also, would Draymond like at some point choke out Kyrie Irving?
Yes, we need to see. We need the Nets to be more toxic, is what I'm trying to get at here. We need the Nets to be on Jerry Springer next season. So I would like this to happen very much. I don't think this is very realistic, but it was just a funny one because everyone's always like, you just use Ben in the Draymond role, and then they'll get proven wrong. And then they'll be like, oh, all KD needs is like a defensive guy back, like in that Draymond type role. And then the Nets will be, and then he'll go there and they still won't win the East. And then everyone who wants to discredit Steph Curry and wants to talk up Ben Simmons as if he is Draymond Green, then they will be proven wrong. And I would love it personally.
I must ask, did you see the Ben Simmons shot today?
Of course I did.
Of course.
The air ball? Yeah. I mean, look, it was in a pickup game. Like he was just chucking it up, but the fact that he couldn't even hit rim on like a midi, and I've watched him. He's been a disaster in preseason from everything I've seen. So, like,
his value is dropping, which is
that's
remarkable.
What I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is like it might be like only the Warriors could be sick enough to think they could rehab Ben Simmons,
and then only the Warriors would actually be able to do it. And then everybody else would be like, Ben Simmons had it all along. It's like, no.
He's in the perfect situation. He's got 2 of the greatest shooters of all time.
That's how I feel about everybody on the Warriors, though. It's really all because of Steph. It's like, that's how I feel about Wiggins, who's like, has become good, but he's also in like the easiest spot for a wing in the NBA. Like you have Steph on offense, you have Draymond on defense, Poole and Clay are out there with shooting. Like you have so much space, you have so much other defense around you. Like you just have to do a very, very, very simple job. And it's like even Ben Simmons maybe could thrive there. I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he'd crumble under the pressure. But
training wheels. It's like going to the Warriors is like just riding your bike with training wheels. Like, oh, cool. I don't have to worry about anything on offense or defense. I can just have the easiest job in the world, and I will get paid a ton and a ton of credit. And it's amazing.
I would say Draymond in New York would be pretty good. Draymond on the Nets, I mean, like, would he and KD get into another fight? Like, they immediately would, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because KD would have Kyrie's back, and Draymond would just have none of it.
Maybe you're just trying to salvage the KD situation there where you're like, we got to do something. Like, there's no way that KD, who said basically the exact quote that Joel Embiid said about Ben Simmons by saying, I'm not here to babysit. And he's been Ben Simmons' teammate for like 7 or 8 months. Yeah, I was gonna say really only played with him for like 2 weeks. Like, and
he's already seen enough.
Saying, yeah, like he's already saying like put up more shots. We're not here to babysit. Like I think that moving Ben Simmons in the long run would be very much in the Nets' interest if they want to keep Kevin Durant around. I'll just leave it like that. But let's move on to a Sixers point guard who actually cares about getting better. And that is Tyrese Maxey, because I just need to throw this out there. This is just a little segment that we're going to do because I don't think Maxey's going to shoot 70% from the field, unfortunately, like he did in the preseason. But I am constantly blown away by how much better this guy gets. I figured he was going to come back and be better after a off season of training. His shot looks even better. He was getting open looks and nailing them, but he has been incredible in the preseason, averaging over 40 points per 36. Now part of that is I think that he cares a little bit more. Part of that is that he's putting a little bit more effort, but I have now watched games in the preseason, and maybe it's all effort and maybe I'm just crazy here, but he has been the best player on the floor in games with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, James Harden, Joel Embiid, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jared Allen. Like, tell me when to stop, because I am to the point where I'm going to be surprised if Tyrese Maxey doesn't win most improved player. And like, if this is the version of James Harden we're getting, Maxey's the second best player on the team.
Yes. I mean, the most improved player thing is interesting because, there's always this bias against second-year players winning it. He's a third-year player. That should help him a little bit. He was already good last year and was in kind of a national spotlight, and people have already written and talked a lot about him improving. I think that might count against him. But we've seen guys who improved massively in year 2 and then again in year 3 win it before. I think he's a very good candidate to win it. Yeah.
Ja Morant just last year. Like, he could have a similar statistical leap to Ja Morant.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a totally reasonable candidate for it. And I mean, him versus Harden, I mean, if he's actually better than Harden, I mean, the Sixers are going to be extraordinarily good, unless Harden completely falls off, which I don't think he will. I mean, Tyrese Maxey looks great. We'll see. I think some of the defensive concerns are a little bit overblown, but the shooting leap looks, very, very early, but it was really good last year. It looks even better this year. And if he can keep shooting at this level and just playing with like this kind of like control as well as pace, he's going to be an all-star. All NBA is really tough. But yeah, I mean, he's looking like an all-star level player at the very least, I would say.
Yeah. And that's kind of what he would need. I said before, in order for him to win most improved player, you have to be in the conversation. I think at this point, like, I think this is going to be a very good regular season team. I wouldn't be shocked if they get 3 all-stars, and maybe if they only get 2, it's because the East is just super talented and James Harden just has the name recognition to get it over him because of like the fan voting and stuff. But like, I know it is preseason, and once again, like, I'm not trying to overreact too much here, but here's a guy who works really hard, always gets better, comes back, his touch is incredible. He's maybe the best, like, I don't know who else to compare it to. Like, obviously Steph is the greatest off-ball like guard of all time, but like, I haven't seen someone in the same realm of player, and I'm not saying he's in Steph's realm as an off-ball player. Steph is the greatest off-ball player of all time, but I'm saying, like, I've never seen an archetype of player who is that second side guard that can attack closeouts and is just constantly moving, is able to hit anything off the catch, and is working off of one superstar level talent, one potential all-star level talent in James Harden. And like, I just don't really know what you do with that. Like, I think that this year could be massive for Maxey. And I think that some of it might be the preseason. The effort levels aren't there from other teams. Obviously some of it is hot shooting. He's been incredible shooting wise. I think teams are going to have to adjust to how good of a shooter he has become, but he's shooting like, I would imagine he's shooting like 90% on open threes in preseason right now. I haven't looked up the exact number, but it's been incredible.
Yeah, he's scorching. Yeah, I don't know what good comps for Maxey are. I mean, I think comps in general are really tough.
He's got we've been trying to figure it out forever. There is not a 1-for-1 comp for him because of the fact that like someone said to me like Jaylen Brown is amazing off the ball, but Jaylen Brown's a very different player from Tyrese Maxey. Klay Thompson is amazing off the ball. Klay Thompson is a very different player than Tyrese Maxey. Like there's been no one that's his size that is that good as a second side guard. Like there really isn't anyone.
This will sound awful. And if you're referencing these guards were way less explosive and just not as good. But if you're talking about guys who were really good off ball at his size and did have at least some on ball chops, you could think of him as kind of like a supercharged like Jameer Nelson or Mo Williams from like the late 2000s. Much quicker, more athletic, just better. But like those guys were really good off ball shooters. They played off like primary superstars, and could do like point guard stuff. But yeah, Tyrese Maxey is he's really, really good. He's also super fun to watch, which is a big bonus.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised in the low annual league pass rankings, the Sixers were not top 10. Because I
had them in my I got 7 of 10 wrong. So apparently I don't know Zach at all.
That's disappointing. I'm surprised they weren't in the top 10. I didn't go through and count like who is in the top 10. But I mean, I think the Sixers, I love watching Joel Embiid play. I love watching Maxey play. I think they probably got knocked because of Harden. Maybe fair, I guess. But yeah, I mean, Tyrese Maxey, he's just so much fun to watch. He's always has like that smile on his face. It's just except when he has his death glare. Yeah, I mean, it should be a lot of fun to watch the Sixers this year, even without Charles Bassey.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we're not going to have. We've lost, as I said on Twitter the other day, the coolest queen, the best queen that we have lost in the last month, Trevelin Queen, RIP, has moved on to the Indiana Pacers. Just signed a 2-way deal with them. We're going to lose Charles Bassey probably. I guess they're trying to look to trade Charles Bassey right now because they haven't released him yet. They have 16 people on the roster. Everyone else seems to be a lock to make the team, including Isaiah Joe, who was in competition for that last roster spot with. They already let Queen go. I'd be interested to see what happens with Bassey. If he gets waived, I think there might be a team out there that just claims him off of waivers.
Clippers.
So the Clippers could be an interesting one. They kind of are lacking in big man depth. The Nuggets were another team I thought of because not only would you get a much better backup than DeAndre Jordan, who is a literal corpse right now, but you would also have the best Jokic stopper in the NBA on your team. So you wouldn't have to worry about a team like the Clippers getting him and shutting him down like Bassey did last year.
I just saw a major a few hours ago. I saw a major Nuggets account who was like, DeAndre Jordan's looked good in preseason. I'm like, this is so funny. This is fantastic. Please be a Michael Malone burner account, I hope.
If you were watching this, please blink twice if you're being held against your will by Michael Malone and or Doc Rivers trying to help out his friend. I literally do not understand how you could ever watch DeAndre Jordan and think that he is still an NBA player. He was the worst player in the NBA last year, again, for like the third straight year. It's like him and like Terrence Ross. I'm like, how are these guys still in rotations? They're so bad.
Yeah, and Udonis Haslem, but he doesn't really even count as an NBA player.
Yeah, he's an honor. He's basically a coach at this point. Let's be honest, or just a guy that gets paid to yell at Tyler Hero when he's.
Which is a great job. I mean, I'd take that job.
True, actually, that's a good point. Yeah, yelling at Tyler Hero would be fun. As we've said before, he has the most important job in the world, which is making sure that Jimmy Butler doesn't kill Eric Spoelstra. Like that is very essential to what the Miami Heat need in order to be successful. So it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, so roster moves. Sounds like Bassey's going to be a roster fatality, a roster crunch fatality here. Probably moves on. I think there are going to be a few teams, maybe some rebuilding teams. Like I think the teams that are going to claim him are probably going to be one of those like Spurs or Jazz or whatever, and they see like that backup center potential that he has. And one of the reasons that we've all talked about why Isaiah Joe should get the last roster spot over him is just it's harder to find anyone who can be a capable movement shooter that isn't a total sieve on defense. So like you can find a Charles Bassey archetype in free agency. Like, they're different players, but like Hassan Whiteside's still a free agent right now. Like you can find that backup center type guy in November. You can find in a random trade, you can get an adequate backup center, which I think is probably Bassey's ceiling. Whereas Isaiah Joe being a guy who can shoot off movement, a guy who is a somewhat capable ball handler, decent defender. He can't score at all inside the arc. He's not going to be running pick and roll and stuff for you. But I think that he at least has a higher end outcome in his future if he ever can become that consistent NBA player.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. I love Isaiah Joe. I have since the draft. Yeah, I mean, I would keep him over Bassey, even though I do like Bassey, but yeah, I mean, I think the Sixers, I mean, they're in a tough spot. It's way different than a couple years ago. They have like actual NBA players that they're cutting instead of having 5 non-NBA players on the roster.
Exactly. Yeah, no, they actually have too many prospects, which is something I never thought that would be an issue for the Sixers. Honestly, this crushes me to say, but if it weren't for the contracts and it weren't for the fact that they drafted him in the first round, I think that Jaden Springer would be getting cut right now.
Probably. Yeah.
He has been a fucking nightmare. I was so wrong about him. Maybe he just needs to go to a team where he can suck for a while, but like offensively, he does nothing. Defensively, whatever. Like, sure, he's fine defensively, but like, I know he's still 20 and he just turned 20, and like, I'm willing to give him time. But if he's anything like he's shown in his first year, a little over a year and change with the Sixers, he does not have a long future in the NBA, which is crazy because at one point he was like a lottery pick.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him a lot too, and I think he could still be good. But yeah, he was drafted. It's a tough spot, and he could be a second contract guy. It's possible.
It sounds like that. I think that was kind of the idea behind him originally, but I definitely don't see his fit with this team. But yeah, sounds like Bassey's gone, and then they will have Montrezl Harrell as like the third string center, which I don't even understand why he signed with us, but it is what it is. He's great for what he is. So, okay. So let's move on to our picks for the Western Conference here. So as you know, last episode, if you listened last year when we did this, we're going to rank our Western Conference standings from 15 to 1. And then at the end, we will give our pick for the Western Conference Finals and the winner of the Western Conference. And since we already picked our East teams, if you didn't listen to the Patreon episode, Rob picked the Bucks and I picked the Celtics. And the reason I picked the Celtics is because nothing can ever go right for the Sixers, and the Celtics will always be a thorn in my side. That was my logic on that.
Correct.
And
good logic.
Yes. And I need to know if Rob's opinion, we'll find out if Rob's opinion has changed over the last few days with everything that's happening with the Warriors and such. But we have number 15, and I think we're probably going to have the same 15. I actually, what is your 15 seed?
The Jazz.
I have the Jazz as well. I thought you might go Spurs, but I went Jazz as well. They're going to be terrible, and they're going to want to be terrible, because if you watch Victor Wembanyama,
I think the Spurs will want to be terrible, but I think they have. I mean, the Jazz are interesting because they have more guys they could trade, I guess. Like their overall talent is higher than the Spurs, but you have to think like Clarkson, Conley, all these guys are going to be traded at some point. And they don't fit together at all. I mean, the Spurs roster doesn't really either. The Jazz just seem like the roster is a complete mess. They're going to be terrible. They want to be terrible. They're going to win like 17 games. Yeah,
I think the Jazz are, if they win a few games early, they're going to just make the moves quicker. Just get rid of these guys. Like, whereas like, and as you said, like, even though they might have more talent than the Spurs, I still don't think Pop has it in him to tank. Like, I still don't think like this late in his career, like he's still going to be trying to win games, even if they're not talented enough to win games. I think roster wise, the Spurs have the worst roster in the NBA, and they picked the right year to tank, certainly. So hopefully, for their sake, they can lose a few more games. One of their young guys doesn't really pop. It maybe takes a little bit longer for them to make that kind of leap into like genuinely impactful player.
Yeah.
And I have Jazz 15, Spurs. There's really no point in even talking about these teams. They're going to be tanking. We know exactly what they're going for. They really don't have any prospects on their rosters that are like future stars. They have guys who are like interesting guys. Like, I don't know. Like, are you going to talk like Josh Primo or I think
Devin Vassell could be really good. But
Devin Vassell could be really good.
maybe not like a star. Like, he's probably never going to make an All-Star game. I think he could be really, really good. I loved him in the draft. I think he's been really good. But yeah, I mean, the interesting thing with the Spurs, the only piece that they have that could be really interesting is Pirtle if they decide to trade him, because Pirtle is legitimately like a pretty solid starting center. There are teams who could use him. But outside of that, I mean, the only other veteran on the roster is like Doug McDermott, maybe, who they could trade. So like, yeah, I mean, they're both going to be terrible. There's no real reason to watch either of them unless you're a fan of those teams or just an utter sicko.
Yeah, you have to be a truly sick person. You have to be like Victor Wembanyama's parents or something in order to watch those
Where's our son going to go? Please not Utah.
Yeah, is he going to live in Salt Lake or San Antonio? Very exciting stuff, folks. Okay, so those are our 15 and 14 seeds. Who did you have at the 13 seed?
This is legitimately tough.
I had a tough time with this too, and I actually think I might change mine.
It's between the Thunder or the Rockets, right?
Yep.
And the Thunder have the best player on either roster by a mile, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But you can never underestimate Sam Presti's ability to tank, ever. Yeah. I think I'll put the Thunder in 13th.
I had the Rockets there, but here's the thing. I think the Rockets are also going to want to be bad for one more year because they don't have their pick after next year.
Yes.
Like, this is their last year where they hold on to their own first. And yeah, it's protected, but like, I still don't think you can take that risk. Like, I think they're going to want to get one more crack at a top guy in a loaded draft. And you have Jalen Green, who I actually think has become underrated, as I tweeted earlier today. That take that was on I'm sorry, I don't remember the person who was hosting the podcast with Matt Moore, but it was like the Locked On NBA podcast or something. They said he was going to be closer to a bench. They said he was going to be like a bench scorer in the future, Jalen Green. And I'm like, what?
I mean, he could be. I mean, I wouldn't write him into that, though. Yeah, I mean,
likely outcome, though? Like, that's kind of how they were talking about it.
I mean, it depends what you mean by bench, because I mean, bench guard could be anything from like Manu Ginobili or like even like a Lou Williams.
Like they meant it like a Jordan Clarkson. And like, let's be honest here. Jalen Green, I think he disappointed a lot of people in his rookie season. I think he struggled out the gate. He got better as the year went on.
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
He's looked amazing in preseason. The shot is coming along. He's still a crazy athlete. I think it's much more likely that Jalen Green is like an all-star level player than it is. I would go as far to say, like, I think it's more likely that he's like a fringe all-NBA guy than a bench scorer. Like,
probably.
I've been thinking about it, and I know that was a loaded draft last year as well. Might not have quite the top-end talent that next year has in terms of like Victor Wembanyama, but I do think that last year's draft, like, these rankings are going to shuffle a lot. And I'm not basing anything on preseason because I know Jalen Green's looked really good in preseason. And I know that Scotty Barnes has struggled in preseason.
Yes. Great. And great for the brand.
But I'm like, kind of like, I said it on the last episode. I'm not as high on Scotty Barnes as a lot of people because other than Giannis, how many guys make it into that all NBA level without being able to shoot? Pretty much no one. If you're not a big, if you're a wing in the way that he is, it's almost impossible to make it into that realm of player. And I still think that, like, I'd take the chance that there are a few guys, Franz, Mobley. I'm not as high on Cade. I think Cade will still have a very good career. I think that, but you could make the argument that any of those guys have a better chance of becoming that all-NBA player, including Jalen Green, just based on their skill set and what they've shown. And you don't look at the context of the situations that they're in.
I think Jalen Green would probably go third in a redraft, like in an objective redraft where everybody. I think he would still go above Franz and Scotty Barnes. I think he'd go below Cade and Mobley, but I think he'd go third.
The Franz Jalen Green conversation is interesting to me.
I mean, I think I would maybe bet on Franz, but I don't know if NBA GMs would.
Yeah, it's tough. I think I might take Franz slightly. I already said I'd take Franz over Cade, and I got a lot of shit. So, but I'm also like historically low on Cade. Like, I just don't like. I don't see the all NBA guy that other people seem to see. I think a lot of that is based on pre-draft priors, personally. But you can go. You can
no. There's some of that. I mean, I think draft people loved Cade, and I think draft people are attached to that.
Yes.
I think that the thing with him is his floor seems so high. Like
Yeah,
I
he
don't
does
think
have a
there's
high
best player in the league potential with him because
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
think he has the athleticism. But I think it's he maybe has the most likely chance of being an all-star out of any of those guys. But maybe less so of being an all NBA guy
Yeah,
than Mobley or Franz or maybe even Jalen Green.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean Jalen Green's gonna be a ton of fun. I mean, I still don't think I'm really gonna be watching many Rockets games, but and I mean, even if he's really good, I mean, the rest of the roster I don't think is there yet.
They're
They
still
still,
so young.
yeah, they're so young, and like they still have Eric Gordon somehow.
He's just
So I
there.
don't
I'm still here.
I don't know how he's still on that roster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be bad. They're going to be really bad. I think, they're certainly going to be in the Wembanyama, tank race. I think, Scoot, any of those top guys, the Thompson twins, they'd all be a good fit in Houston. I think they recognize like Jabari Smith might be really, really good. He's probably not like a number 2 guy. I think he could pan out as like a 3
Yeah.
guy.
Klay
And they're,
Thompson.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's gonna be really good. I think I like Jabari Smith a lot, but like I don't think he's gonna be that guy. So yeah, I mean the Thunder, it's like Shea is great, but they're gonna kneecap. Somebody's gonna like stick a needle in his knee or something, and he's gonna be out for the last 35 games of the season.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
a guy in a hood is gonna
Yeah.
like jump him outside of like a hotel or something.
Sam Presti getting on a super villain.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, both those teams I think will be fun enough to watch. I mean, I also just don't really like the rest of the Thunder's young guys as much as a lot of people. Like, I'm not really a huge Lou Dort fan. I can't stand Darius Baisley. I don't think like Trey Mann is really very good. Like a lot of their young guys are just like totally like disposable. I mean, it's really like Giddy is fun, but like he was horrible scoring last year.
Yeah.
I think he's looked better, but like, is him and Shea like, is that really take? They're gonna be bad even if they don't try to tank.
Yeah. I
So
do think they're gonna be bad, but I had them slightly ahead of the Rockets because I believe that they can't keep doing this thing with Shea. And I think that Shea will play enough games that it will sway the fortunes of them and make them a little bit better. I actually think a guy who could be a positive impact player from the jump for them is Jalen Williams,
sure, yeah.
from Santa Clara, not Jalen Williams from Arkansas.
Though I like him too.
Yeah, but like that's more like long term. Like I like in terms of like instant impact, I could see. I think Jalen Williams from Santa Clara is going to be first team all rookie. I actually have 2 guys that I really like from the Thunder and Rockets that were taken outside of the top 10.
Tari Eason, baby.
That's right. Tari Eason, who I also think could make second team all rookie. I don't think he'll get the minutes to make first team all rookie, but I think defensively that guy's going to be a monster. I think he's already shown in preseason why it's stupid that he fell to 17. He should have been a surefire top 10 pick. Doesn't make any sense to me at all. His athleticism, his production, I like him a lot. Those are the young guys I'll be looking out for on these teams. But I have the Rockets in the 13 seed. I have the Thunder in the 12 seed. You're not Poku pilled? Someone asked in the comments, Rob.
I was not a huge Poku fan, and he's shown flashes. I mean, that's the thing with him is like the flashes are ridiculous. Like his ability to pass and handle at his size is crazy, but like he's still so thin. Like, will he ever be able to really defend at an NBA level? Like the decision making is still questionable. Like scoring, I think he could be an NBA player. He's still super young. But like, will he be an impact guy even this year? I don't think so.
I refuse to have a Poku opinion. I'm not going to entertain the fact that we have to pretend like this guy is real, that he is real. Like if he wouldn't play on any other team unless their objective was to lose games. I've heard a lot about all the stuff with Poku, and I just refuse to ever entertain it.
He's fun. He's entertaining for just both good and bad reasons. But
Rookie
yeah,
Poku was like the worst player I've ever seen in my life. It was truly astonishing that he was in an NBA. Like he would play the Sixers, and I was like, I don't think this guy would get run on the Blue Coats.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the worst. I mean, the Clippers played the Thunder in like one of the last 2 games of last year, and they rolled out.
He's not anymore. He's not. Yeah, he's not Vit Krejci / Lindy Waters / whoever else they were.
There was like a Georgios Kalatzaitis or something, and I was like,
not real.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. It was legitimately embarrassing. It was so much worse than any process team, I think. The teams they were rolling. The same goes for the Blazers. It was just embarrassing. I mean, I think those are going to be 12.
They had Dame's cousin and his name is Keljin Blevins, which like literally sounds like if you were making a prank call and you just thought of your name off the top of your head, you're like, Keljin Blevins. Like, I don't understand how the Thunder or the Blazers don't get more shit for their egregious tanking. Well, the Thunder get plenty of shit, I should say. The Blazers didn't get any shit for egregious tanking last year, and they should.
And it was embarrassing. It was. Yeah, I mean, I think both those teams are going to be bad, but fun to watch. And the thing to keep an eye on, as you said, is the Thunder. Like, will they shut Shea down again?
I don't think they will.
I think it could be bad for them if they do, but I mean, it depends how bought in he is. I don't know.
Yeah. One more year. Just need one more pick, Shea. Come on. Honestly, they have not even really been tanking all that much. They've really only tanked for 2 years. It just feels like forever, which is funny. But, all right. So, I mean, people did the same thing with the process. It's like the process lasted a decade, and it's like, well, Sam Hinkie was our GM for like 2.5 seasons. So I don't really know how that, how that works. But, all right. So that's my bottom tier. That's my 4 teams that I think the Spurs and the Jazz are in their own tier of terribleness at the true bottom of that. And then the Thunder and Rockets are like slightly ahead of them in terms of like young, developing, fun team. Then we have the next tier up. So who is your last team to miss the play-in?
I want to say the Blazers. You know what? I'm going to say the Blazers. I think the Kings get the play-in. Objectively, I think the Kings have a worse roster, but I just think it would be hilarious if the Kings snuck in ahead of the Blazers. And I'm a known Portland skeptic. I mean, I think you could also put the Lakers. I think those are probably the 3 teams in that kind of like that tier. I just, will this be the year like LeBron and AD stay somewhat healthy? I think the Lakers have done, for all the jokes that I make and we all make about them, I think this offseason was much better than last offseason. Like the roster is still not good, but like it's passable. Like they have guys who can like credibly be in a rotation. Like last year, I think like 8 guys from their team last year are unsigned. Just their entire roster is just
Carmelo,
Trevor
Rondo, Trevor Ariza, Dwight Howard. Like, it's like their whole team is not.
Yeah, Wayne Ellington, Avery Bradley, like a whole list. None of them are NBA players. Just none of them are. And this year they have NBA players. I mean, they're not great NBA players, but they are NBA players. Pat Beverly. Pat Beverly is better than anybody they had on their team last year outside of LeBron and AD. I think you could make the case Schroeder is as well. I mean, him versus Malik Monk. Probably Malik Monk. I mean, it's again. I mean, what are we talking about here? It really depends how healthy you think LeBron and AD are going to be, but I have them probably a little ahead of those other 2 teams. I mean, the Blazers are just so underwhelming. And we talked about this when we talked about the Draymond to the Blazers. I mean, like Jeremy Grant is like a fine fourth starter, and I guess that's what he's going to be. Like I can't believe they're running back like 2 undersized guards again. Like they just got rid of CJ McCollum after 7 years of like, this doesn't actually work against top tier competition. And then they're like, oh, Anthony Simons is our number 2 guy next to Davis. What are you doing?
Who's actually a worse defender than CJ McCollum?
Yeah, I mean, he's still young enough to improve, but I mean, he's going to be a terrible defender. Dame is only getting worse as a defender. Dame is absolutely awful as a defender. Like Yusuf Nurkic has slipped there. Like I love Josh Hart. He's like a great role player type guy. And Jeremy Grant is totally fine. Those guys are not salvaging that defense. And I mean, their offense is probably going to be pretty good. Their defense is probably going to be bottom 5, at best, like bottom 10. And their offense, I don't think is going to be good enough to be like top 5. They're just like a very classic, like high 30s, low 40s wins team. They're going to be a competent on the right night. Dame is going to, or Anthony Simons is going to blaze you up, and they could beat any team on nights when those guys are hot, probably. But like sustained success, I don't really see it. So, and I think they kind of have less upside than the Kings. Weirdly, I just, in terms of like their young guys.
I wouldn't say that. I would say I actually have the same rankings you had. I have the Blazers as the 11 seed.
Nice.
I have the Kings as the 10 seed. I have the Lakers as the 9 seed. And I don't think they have as much upside, I should say. Like, there's a chance we get Damian Lillard back and he is just Damian Lillard. And then the Blazers automatically have more upside because they have an actual real star.
Yeah.
And complementary pieces. Well, yes, the Simons fit isn't great. Defensively, I think they'll be better than they were. And those guys offensively, comparing them to like the Harkless Amino years, like Zach Lowe brought up, like Hart and Grant are miles ahead of them as offensive players and just about as good as them defensively. You have Gary Payton coming off the bench. We'll see. I don't think he's going to be as good as he was with the Warriors, but I think he'll still be a solid bench guard.
Yeah.
I don't hate the Blazers. I'm just like this is a bet more so on Damian Lillard not being the Damian Lillard of old. And like the Damian Lillard of old could carry a team to 45 wins and could get you upwards of 50 wins. And like, as long as he had some semblance of a decent team around him, could do that. I think that Dame, I think he might be just like Harden, entering a different phase of his career, and he's not, and he still has to be the guy and do everything. I think they made some upgrades compared to their roster last year, obviously, but I'm still skeptical that they can. You know what? I'm actually changing mine. I actually am going to put the Kings here. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like 1 through 8. I trust the Blazers more than I trust the Kings. Like the Kings are going to have the worst defense of all time. And I feel like that's being under discussed. Do they have a single positive defender in their rotation that isn't 6-foot Davion Mitchell?
I think Keegan Murray will be a decent defender out of the gate.
But even so, a defensive wing rookie, like how impactful can that guy really be?
Harrison Barnes is fine defensively.
When he wants to, but apparently he hasn't even tried on defense in like 3 years. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not a Harrison Barnes fan. Yeah, I mean, I think objectively the Blazers are better than the Kings. I'm just salty about the Blazers. So I'm putting them at 11.
Yeah, I'm going to switch. I think the Kings are going to. I think the Kings. I said it on the disaster rankings episode where I was like, it just feels right that the Kings do everything to try to make the play-in and they miss it by like half a game or like a game, last game of the season, and the Blazers make the 10 seed over them.
I think it's objectively, I think it's the right call. Like, I mean, the Kings, as you said, their defense is going to be terrible. I'm not really a huge Fox fan. I'm not really a huge Sabonis fan. I think Mike Brown will help them a lot, like just in terms of getting their defense from like abominable to just bad. But like, I don't know if that'll be enough. I do like, I mean, the thing is, I like some of the other guys. Like, I really like Kevin Huerter. I do like Malik Monk, even though I just made fun of him. I did like the Keegan Murray pick. Like, I think they have, like, they're going to be a solidly competent. And the Blazers, it all comes down to Dame. Like, can Dame stay healthy? Can he still be like an all-star level player? If not, I think the Kings might have an edge. The only reason I say upside is like I do kind of like Murray. I do like Davion Mitchell, even though he's small, and I wouldn't have drafted him if I were them. And I'm not really a huge Shaedon Sharpe fan, and I like the other young guys on the Blazers just don't interest me very much. But yeah, I mean, I think both those teams are. I can't see them finishing any higher than 9th, and even 9th on. I think those are just going to be 10 and 11, barring Lakers injuries or a Suns just catastrophe, which maybe it happens.
So the real question here is, it's kind of similar to the question we had before about like, we know the Jazz are just going to be egregious about their tanking. What do we think about the Kings versus the Blazers? Because like the Kings are selling their soul to make the play-in. And the Blazers, they're like, we've already been to the playoffs. Like, it's not that big a deal to us to make it to the play-in as the 10 seed. Like, if we get towards the end of the season and these teams are fighting, and like, or even if we get to the trade deadline, I feel like the Blazers are more likely to make those kind of like sell-off type trades where they bring in younger talent, and the Kings are more likely to do the opposite, where they mortgage the future to make the 9 seed or the 10 seed,
which would be incredible. I mean, there would be nothing more funny than the Kings trade and Keegan Murray for like.
There's no.
I don't even know who. Even like John Collins or somebody.
Oh God. On draft night, that was the rumor, was that they were going to trade the pick that they used on Keegan Murray to get John Collins, and it was just like, oh God, could you be more mid? But I don't see. I just don't understand how an NBA team in 2022 is going to be able to start De'Aaron Fox at point guard and Sabonis at center and not have the worst defense of all time. Like, I just like, even if they need to, like, even if they have the guys, like, you would need to have incredible, like, you would need to have the other starters be like Matisse Thybulle, DeAnthony Melton, and like fucking Draymond Green to have a league average defense. What's that?
PJ Tucker.
Yeah, all Sixers. No, but you would need to have like incredible help defenders who also can like defend on the, like, I just don't see a way in which that defense isn't a fucking disaster. And I think their offense is going to be good, but like how many offenses are going to be really good this year? Because it feels like there are like 5 or 6 teams that are going to have absurdly good offenses.
Yeah. I mean, the Kings are. I think they would probably finish 11th objectively, but I just like to make fun. I just like to make fun of the Blazers. The Kings. I mean, I think what you said also makes sense. Is the Kings are more likely to make a really stupid desperation move to get into 9th or 10th, and the Blazers are much more likely to be like, "Hey, Dame, we're 21 and 25 at the trade deadline. We're not going anywhere this season.
Yes.
Like, we're gonna trade Yusuf Nurkic. We're gonna trade Jeremy Grant. We're gonna trade." Who else?
Josh
Gary
Hart.
Payton.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna trade these guys and immediately head for the lottery and try to see if we can snag one of these guys to put next to you and Anthony and Simons and Shaden Sharp next to or whatever. Another guard.
Yeah.
So
and their pick is in perpetuity. It is it is lottery protected, so they have no interest in really making they realistically shouldn't have a huge interest in making the playoffs if it comes down to that.
Yeah, the Blazers just make no sense. I like their moves all were good in a vacuum, but like I don't really get what they're trying to do with their team.
Got it.
And I just don't even want to talk about the Lakers. I just can't. Yeah,
so
I
the
mean,
Lakers are your 9 seed, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, there is some disaster potential with the Lakers, I think.
Oh,
like,
100%.
Like if LeBron and or AD gets injured, which is very possible, I mean, they could be easily. I mean, I don't think they'd fall below the Rockets or Thunder. They could be the 11th seed. I think that's like the floor for them because I mean, there's no way they'd be lower than that. But I mean, disaster, I guess, by missing the play. And again, I could definitely see it. I could definitely see them finishing 11th. But yeah, I mean, I think the roster is better enough this year that even with some more injuries and Russ still being terrible, I think they can scratch out a play-in spot as long as they get like 110, 80 in LeBron games.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to be the 9 seed because I feel like they have to have some injury luck bounce back into their favor. They might scrap out a few wins without those guys just based on the fact that they have, multiple players that they're playing that aren't like legally dead. That helps when you're not like 37 years old and probably shouldn't be in the NBA. Like I think they'll at least have some youth and athleticism to help them get by. I think I'm not sure so you have Lakers Kings in your plan? I'm assuming you're taking the Lakers to win that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if it's just one game, like I'm taking the team LeBron James and Anthony Davis if they're somewhat healthy. So yeah, I have Lakers Blazers, and I think I would also take the Lakers. Although I think that the Lakers Blazers game would be a little bit more interesting. I'll say that.
I mean, Dame, any game Dame could score. If Dame is Dame, he could score 45 points. Exactly. It would be hilarious if in LA Dame hitting like 30 footers and then waving by. That would be great. Even though I'm not a Dame fan, it would be incredible to.
It would be very funny for the moment because you would consider how far those guys have fallen if they're in the play-in and they're
Dame hits a shot and it's like I get to play, Dallas for the play-in or whoever it is.
And we are in lockstep here. That is my 8 seed, the Dallas Mavericks. So.
Wow, that's I'm maybe not that surprised. I don't know if it's like a crazy take. Yeah, I mean, I don't love the Mavs roster. Christian Wood, former Sixers process legend, is he's talented. I don't know if he'll help them win. He'll help them win some games. I guess I should say. I shouldn't say that. Jalen, we talked about this in the Eastern.
Offense is going to be ridiculous when they have Luka and Wood on the court together.
Yeah, and I mean, like they still have a lot of their core rotation, like role players. They still have like Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber, who are all 3-point shooters who can play defense and switch. Like they're going to be good. I think they're a clear tier above those teams as long as they stay healthy. But like I just don't know, like what are they? I mean, I said this when we talked about the Eastern with the Knicks. Like I don't love Jalen Brunson, but he was a great fit next to Luka. He was really important on their team. I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie is particularly great. Maybe he proves me wrong. The crypto market crashing, I think, will only damage him, or maybe it'll inspire him to.
Yeah. No. Every time cryptos does bad, his stats dip. We did like a mini thing on this last year. Like he needs a crypto boom if we want to ever get back that like one season that he was in like the sub all-star conversation.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Maybe it does. I hope not. Yeah, I mean, and then after that, it's like, who do they have on their team? It's like, I mean, Tim Hardaway will be back. Tim Hardaway is like a totally fine rotation bench scorer type. Um, Dwight Powell's a fine. Like, I guess they signed JaVale McGee and gave JaVale McGee a 3-year deal for some reason. Like,
I can't imagine giving someone in their late 30s a 3-year deal. Are you for the mid-level exception? Are you kidding me? Especially someone who's been on a lot of really good teams and he's a big. That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway, PJ Tucker, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah. I mean, PJ Tucker is the 3 years is a little wild, but I mean, PJ Tucker is better than JaVale McGee, and
sure. And also a harder archetype of player to find.
Yeah. I mean, the Mavs are going to be good, but like they're very unexciting, which is weird to say considering they have Luka. But like I think like night in night out, there could be a great offense, there could be a totally fine defense, and they're going to win like 45, 46 games maybe. Like they're going to win a good amount, and they're going to lose in the first round again for the third time in the Luka era. Last year was such a fluke. Between them getting just the Jazz on the verge of collapse and then the Suns also on the verge of collapse for a very different reason. Yeah, I mean, I just don't believe in the Mavs at all. I don't believe in Jason Kidd as a head coach.
Part of me feels like if any part could be clipped from any of my off-season episodes, especially this one, is me going on record and doubting Luka Doncic, who is still one of the 5 or 6 best players in the NBA.
Yeah.
And when you have one of those guys on your team and they have relatively positive health, you're usually a really good team with some extenuating circumstances keeping that from happening. Luka, with defenders around him that are positive defenders, everyone essentially except for like Christian Wood and Tim Hardaway Jr., I think could be a success to be like a regular season wins machine. I don't believe in the ceiling of this team. I think that the floor might be decent, but the ceiling is very low because of the fact that they just don't really have that second guy. Maybe Christian Wood can finally get his head out of his ass on defense and be somewhat decent on that end. And the offense is just so powerful when him and Luka play together with shooters that they can get something out of it. But it just feels like it should be a down year. It feels like the year that should be a pressure on the organization type year to make a move after this season once they get all their draft picks back. I don't love anything that they did this offseason except for I'm fine with the Christian Wood move, even though I don't understand why you would then go out and sign JaVale McGee. But like that first round pick, they got Jaden Hardy in the second round, and like that's the kind of guy you're drafting at where they traded the pick for Christian Wood anyway.
Yeah,
so
totally fine.
That was fine process to me. Like that was like I would have taken Jaden Hardy in the end of the first, and then they got Christian Wood, who's already a proven solid to good NBA player. So that's fine, even though I don't love the fit. So that's my 8 seed. I think that in a 1 game, imagine being in a 1 game fucking elimination or whatever it is in the play, and you get 2 games if you're the higher seed. But
you play Luka.
You have to play fucking Luka.
I would take Luka over LeBron, so I would take the Mavs in 2020.
Okay. So let's say we're going 8, and then who's your 7 seed? Because if you're that would be the first matchup that we get, and we need to figure this out. Because I have a team here. It's just so hard with the West because it's so deep, and like we're talking about a team with one of the 5 or 6 best players in the NBA as the 8 seed.
Yeah.
Even though we don't like anything else that they did, that still feels really tough.
I don't know. The 7 seed is really tricky for me. I think you could put any number of teams here. Should I be bold? I'm gonna say the Grizzlies.
I have the Grizzlies as well.
I was debating between the Grizzlies and the Suns. That was a hot take would be the Suns, I guess. But
I have the Grizzlies in the 7 seed and the Suns in the 6 seed. So we are literally in lockstep here. This is very different from our Eastern Conference, by the way. If you listen to the Eastern Conference one, we had a few different things. We had similar tiers, but we had different rankings as we got this much further up. So
yeah,
the Grizzlies, I've been saying, I think they're getting too high on their own supply.
That article today was so funny.
What was the article?
Oh, it's oh god, I don't remember. I didn't read the actual article. I just saw the tweets about it. But it was like, guess what team like hasn't had a player punch another player and like doesn't is yeah. Let me see.
How was that not a Raptors article?
God, it was from somebody I'd never heard of before either. I mean, that happens. Like it happens. Like there are
Sure.
people
Like,
who write Clippers articles, and it's like these are not people who like write about the Clippers much. I'm
I
trying to
read
see
for
if I can.
heavy.com.
Yeah, and it's like, but yeah, there have been articles where it's like the Grizzlies, like their organization, like their team loves each other so much. It's like, yeah, but like their second best player is out for a while, and is at this point like kind of proving to be quite injury prone, even though I love him. Um, that's Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah.
I think losing Kyle Anderson and D'Anthony Melton will hurt them a lot. Like I like some of their bench guys, like I like John Conchar. I like their draft. Again, I mean they're NBA their scouting and front offices, like all these former draft Twitter guys. I think they nail the draft every year. Like I like Jake LaRavia, I like David Roddy, I like Kennedy Chandler, I like
Same.
Kenneth Lofton. Like I like all those guys. But like, are they going to be positive NBA players year one? Probably not. John Morant, I think, is getting overrated, even though he's good. He's super fun. I have nothing against John Morant. Like there are talks about him being like an MVP caliber player. I just don't think he's there yet.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of the upside for me with them is Bane, because Bane made such a huge leap between year one and year two. And
Yeah.
like he's a little bit older for a prospect, but he's still like he could certainly still make another big leap in year three.
Yeah,
And like
he's
if
like
he
24. He's right in that range where like you
yeah.
can still get like a little bit better.
Yeah, like I mean, if he makes another leap to like true all-star level, like that would unlock a lot for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it for me, it's mainly just they lost some good veterans, and Jaren Jackson Jr., who's their second best player, is and maybe their most important regular season player, honestly, considering that they were what 20-2 without Ja last year in the regular season.
Yeah.
Like
He's kind of the glue that holds that defense together. And
yeah,
like
they're gonna be starting
like
Brandon Clark, like
yeah, and you just said they lost D'Anthony Melton and Kyle Anderson, who are
both
very
good
good regular
defenders.
season defenders.
Yeah,
So that's a little bit tough. I also am like talking about like the Grizzlies getting high on their own supply. I understand they want to reset the contract cycle and stuff, but like I tweeted last night watching that Sixers game, and it's like, look, I know D'Anthony Melton struggled for them, but like there's no doubt in my mind that D'Anthony Melton in the right situation can be a playoff player. They're just like, he's too good. Like, I know he's had his struggles specifically in his role on the Grizzlies, and he really didn't have like two great series or whatever. But like, I don't know. Like, you just signed Tyus Jones and Steven Adams to huge contracts, and those guys in certain situations are just not going to be playable in the playoffs. Like, there's just due to the fact of what kind of players they are. Like, I think Tyus Jones is a very good regular season player, and he's been good in the playoffs in the past. And Steven Adams, but they also haven't gotten far in the playoffs. They haven't had the certain matchups in the playoffs. Like, I don't know. I once again think they're getting too high on their own supply between getting the draft picks and signing these guys to these contracts. And everyone's like, well, they'll just trade them. And I'm like, how much value does Tyus Jones and Steven Adams have in a trade? Like, unless it's purely one of those trades where it's like the Cavs where Donovan Mitchell gets sent there and then they just send back basically prospects and contract filler and picks. Like, I don't know. I'm skeptical that the Grizzlies, who have done everything right in the draft, are 100% right all the time, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still love them long term. I still think they're going to be really good. But yeah, I think this will just be a bit of a down year for them. Totally fine. They had some bad injury luck. And a lot of teams stumble after. I mean, I know everybody's already compared to them to the Atlanta Hawks of a year ago. Was it only a year ago? I guess it must be. That made an and the Grizzlies didn't even make it to the Western Conference Finals. But
they should have lost in the first round. Let's be honest.
The Wolves probably should have beat them. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know with the Grizzlies. Like they're going to be really good. They're going to a lot of games. But yeah, I think there's a lower ceiling and a lower floor without Jaren Jackson Jr. for however long he's going to be out. And I also think they're also not a team who's like super desperate. Like even though they did, make a big stride last season, like I don't think they're going to be a team that's like locked in to be like, we have to win 50 games or we have to make the second round this year. Like if they have a down year, I think their front office is content taking it slow and not making any like stupid long-term decisions.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that they'll just be patient and like that's their plan. Like they're developing guys. They're waiting until Ja and the three guys they have there, Ja, Bane, and Jaren Jackson, are in their prime and relatively healthy to make their move. And I think that they still have some time. So I'm not worried about them being in the 7th seed. Although in a Grizzlies Mavs matchup, I'm taking the Mavs because they have Luka. And I just, even though I like a lot of the Grizzlies' young players, I'm still like in a 1-game scenario, I'm taking the team with the best player, and Luka is by far the best player out of anyone on those teams. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I think either of them would beat the Lakers in a
same.
play-in though.
Yeah,
So
so I think that they, after re-ranking, I'd go Mavs 7 seed, the Grizzlies as the 8 seed would be like when we
okay,
enter the playoffs, because they would lose, the Mavs
yeah,
would
yeah.
first play in and get in. So okay, so in the re-ranking, that's what I have, and then the 6 seed we both have the Suns, right? Do we have the Suns in the 6 seed?
I'm between them and the Pelicans.
Fuck.
I think
That's
people
also
are.
my 5 seed.
I think I'm going to go Pelicans 6th,
Okay.
and Suns 5th. I think people are getting, and I mean, I have them as the 6th seed, which is really high in a crowded Western Conference. The Pelicans, like, they still have a lot of questions to answer for me. Like, this team has literally never played together before because a lot of new pieces were brought in last year. Zion has never played with Jonas Valanciunas. He's never played with CJ McCollum. He's never played with some of their other, like, Herb Jones or some of their other young guys. Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna be really good. I love Zion. I'm a big Zion believer. I'm not a huge Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum fan. They're both good players. I think they'll play off Zion well. Their offense will be great. Their defense, we'll see. I think I would probably lean the Suns above them, actually. So I think I will have the Pelicans in 6th, but they're going to be insanely fun to watch. I mean, I want to watch all Zion games if possible.
Yeah, so I have the Suns in the 6th seed. I just think it's, once again, stacked Western Conference, weird vibes here. Chris Paul can't jump. Jay Crowder's already sitting out. DeAndre Ayton doesn't want to be there. It feels like a 6 seed to go from the 1 seed and win like 60 plus games to go all the way to the 6 seed is like a massive, massive fall. And it probably says more about the strength of the Western Conference and the strength of the Suns from last year, that they aren't, or I should say just strength of the Suns from last year, that they're not lower, but I have them in the 6 seed because I just feel like weird vibes here. The Pelicans, it all really depends on their defense, because like
Yeah.
they could be like just a better version of the Kings, where like their offense is really, really good and they have legitimate star power, which is probably the main difference if Zion stays healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But like defensively, they have a very low floor, unless maybe Zion and Ingram can be somewhat competent on that end, which they haven't really shown so far in their career. I think CJ is always going to be a negative just due to his size. I think that you need to hope that like Trey Murphy can be in the rotation, so you have like a defensive wing type guy. You have maybe Dyson Daniels can crack the rotation. He's a good defender. Herb Jones is going to be able to hold some together, but like the defensive pieces don't fit. Like I know Valanciunas has become a decent drop defender, but like who do they have at the point of attack other than like, I guess Alvarado and Herb, but like, are they going to play big minutes with the Herb definitely will, but like, is Alvarado going to play big minutes? Is Trey Murphy going to be able to crack the rotation? Is Dyson Daniels going to be able to crack the rotation? Like they have question marks. I like Larry Nance off the bench if they need some sort of other like option, because he's obviously a better, more versatile defender than Jonas Valanciunas. But I still have my question marks about that team. I just think that they're going to have like a top 3 offense. And I trust their offense more than I trust the Kings. And I think that they at least can, between Herb Jones, who is like really fucking good defensively,
Yeah, he's
and then
unbelievable.
like I just don't see a way in which like you could convince me that like Zion and Ingram, because of their size and like just their general ability, that they're like okay defensively next year. Whereas I don't see that at all with the Kings. And I just think that they have that higher level. They're a little bit deeper. Like I buy them as, why I have them as the 5 seed is I just buy like Zion is an MVP candidate if he can stay healthy. And I also buy, or maybe not MVP candidate, but maybe like all NBA guy. And then I buy like complementary offensive stars in CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram and just like a lot of their young guys. So
No, I agree. I mean, I think the Suns have horrible vibes, but it is a long way to drop from winning 60 plus games to, the 60. They won 64 last year. And like most of the talent is back, like, and their bench is a little bit different, but like they signed some fine bench guys like Damian Lee and Josh Okogie and Jock Landale. Like these are all like fine bench guys. Like they're going to be.
I don't like any of those players.
They're all fine.
Josh Okogie stinks. Come on. Damian Lee's fine. Jock Landale's not an NBA player. Come on.
I think he's fine. It really depends. Like, I mean, I think, a lot of why they fell apart in the playoffs I mean, most of it had to do with better players, but like, is campaign actually going to be decent, or is he going to be terrible again, or
Yeah.
just like eh? I think clearly a couple years ago was a fluke season for him, but like, can he be better than he was last year? If he's not
I'm more
good,
interested to see Saric and Shamit, to be honest. Like, can they have bounced back? Because Saric post injury and Shamit post being bad for 2 years.
Shaman, I feel bad because I liked Landry and I was super high on him after his rookie season.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's there at this point. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, they have all these guys who are like theoretically fine NBA bench players. Um, the thing with Payne for me is like, can you get Chris Paul more of a breather? Like, can you get his minutes down and keep him fresh? Can you like even have him sit games? You know, or does he have to keep playing all these games in order for them to grind out wins? That's the big difference for me. And I think ultimately they are still going to win, probably like close to 50 games, if not over, just because like even if Aiden is unhappy, like he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who will just not try or give up. Like I think he'll still play hard and be pretty good. Um,
I can't imagine a number 1 former overall pick just giving up on his team.
that's never happened. Never ever happened.
Also a video game player.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to win a lot of games, and I just trust their floor a little bit more than the Pelicans. But I mean, the Pelicans, I mean, if you told me Zion, you mentioned MVP. I mean, it's possible he's an MVP candidate. I mean, he's one of the best offensive players in the NBA, full stop. If he
Sure.
could be decent defensively, add maybe a bit of a jumper, a bit of better decision making and passing, he could be in that conversation. I mean, it would be kind of surprising. But like if he was all NBA first team and got some MVP votes, it wouldn't shock me. I think he's that good on offense. But I do have worries a little bit about their depth and defense compared to the Suns, who I think are just going to win a lot of regular season games.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about our top tier here because we got to wrap it up soon. But so in my top tier here, after that tier of I had Pelican Suns in that tier, I have my top tier. I'll just run through my 4 through 1 seed. So I have the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, and the Clippers. That's
You have the Timberwolves as the 2 seed.
I have the Timberwolves as the 2 seed, and let me tell you why.
Okay.
Rudy Gobert teams in the regular season
Sure.
automatically like top 3 defense. Like it's just gonna happen. Like he might be a regular season merchant, but like the floor that he gives you defensively when he's on the court, and he's probably gonna play over 30 minutes a game for them. I am a little bit concerned about their depth. I'm concerned a little bit about how everything will fit and how it will look, especially with Karl-Anthony Towns at the 4. Like it's going to be interesting, but I still think that I think this is the year that the Timberwolves make the leap, like to be like regular season wise, at least a very, very good team. I think Ant getting better, Rudy Gobert setting that level on defense. I don't believe in Karl-Anthony Towns as a playoff player. I believe in him as a regular season player. I believe in D'Angelo Russell even as like a regular season role player type guy. And I think that they can scrap together the rest of the rotation between the guys that they have on the roster. And I think that they're going to be either the 2 or the 3 seed. I landed on them as the 2 seed because I think they're going to try to win a ton of games. And I could see these other teams just like being like what, like the Warriors have already won titles. The Nuggets are going to want to save it for the playoffs. And I think that I have the Clippers as the 1 seed because I just think they're super, super deep.
This is, I guess, will be our first and maybe only major difference. I would have the Timberwolves in the same tier as the Suns and the Pelicans.
I just meant in the regular season. So
I would include in the regular season as well.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would have them as the 4th seed. I think you're right about Rudy Gobert. I mean, his teams just win a ton of regular season games. I'm just maybe a little bit of an Ant skeptic and a big D'Lo skeptic. And their depth is shaky. I do like the Kyle Anderson signing. Keeping McDaniels was good. I like Jalen Noel. So, I mean, they have some guys, but it's not great depth. And, Rudy's getting a little bit up there. Slippage in terms of play, in terms of injuries could very well happen. Yeah, I mean, I just think that they're going to be really, really good. I mean, I think they'll win over 50 games. Which, I mean, I guess that as the 4 seed is pretty crazy. So I maybe I need to readjust my win totals here. Yeah, Ant to me is still maybe another year away. And I think that's where like people who are like, he's a superstar. I think he needs at least 1 more year. He's still really, really young. I think the decision-making still needs a lot of work, and the passing and playmaking does. people are real believers in him, and I totally get it. But I also just don't think D'Lo is very good. He's their starting point guard. And that's kind of rough. Though, I mean, I think him and Gobert in a pick and roll will do a lot of damage. Yeah, I mean, they're going to be good. I love Chris Finch as their head coach. But I just don't think that they quite have like those top 3 teams in terms of even regular season, much less the playoffs. So I'd probably go them at 4. And then I think I will go Nuggets at 3, Clippers 2, Warriors 1.
Okay, so you have the Warriors as the 1 seed, which is funny because last year when we came on here, I think I had them as the 3 seed and you were lower on them, but then obviously they won the title last year. So
yeah, I mean, I just think kind of, even though it's weird because like most of their key players had already won a championship, I do feel like kind of the monkey is off their back thing will be the case a little bit. Like Steph will finally be like he won a title on his own again. No Kevin Durant, won the finals MVP. Clay is back. He doesn't have to rehab anymore. Like Wiggins is there. He's like kind of integrated. Their young guys are a year older. They lost a lot of their veteran depth, but like they still have, some competent veterans around there. I just think they're going to win a lot of games, even if they rest their guys. And the Clippers, I just don't put as the 1 seed, just more for fear of jinxing them. And just because something will go wrong for the Clippers. The Nuggets are interesting. I think their depth is not good. I love Bones Highland.
Their bench stinks.
It's not good. I mean, Zeke Naji, everybody loves Zeke Naji, but like I need to see him play more than like a couple hundred minutes and be like a real rotation player. I think Bruce Brown is like very weirdly overrated. It's because he played in Brooklyn and like he has kind of a quirky game. Like he's fine, but like I don't love Bruce Brown. I love Bones Highland. I think Bones is great.
Yeah, Bones is great.
Really good. But yeah, like I mean, Michael Porter Jr., like huge question mark. Like, can he stay healthy? How good will he actually be?
He was really bad when he played last year. I feel like
he was really bad last year. And preseason, I think, has been mixed. Like, how does Jamal Murray look? Like, even though he's had a lot of time to recover, like it'll take time for him to get back up to game speed. Like
he's already bumped. He's already bruised. He had a hamstring injury the other night.
Yeah. I mean, there are some questions with depth, but the thing with me is Jokic is just so good in the regular season. I mean, he's good in the playoffs too, but he's just such a dominant force in the regular season. And I mean, their starting lineup, I think, might be the best single lineup in the NBA.
It will be up there, certainly. I think it will be like the Sixers, the Celtics, the Nuggets.
It's just going to be really, really good. And like Jokic is also a tank. Like he doesn't get injured. He can play a ton of minutes. He can absorb like all the offensive usage. I mean, hopefully, MPJ and Jamal Murray will help them out with that. But I do worry about their depth, and Michael Malone just doesn't stagger, which will be tough for them. Like, how quickly into the season will they bench DJ? If it's not within 20 games, it's going to be a drag on their win total. And then, I mean, the Clippers, I have like thousands of hours of podcasts about the Clippers. But I mean, I think, they're super deep. They're the deepest team in the NBA. They have like 12 competent, at least, rotation players, which is insane. The thing is, how much will Kawhi play? How much will Paul George play? How much will any of their veterans play in terms of games played, in terms of minutes played? I think Ty Lue is going to do a ton of experimentation, which might lead to some regular season losses. Like he's going to be trying to figure out exactly what lineups work the best together, what guys he can truly count on in like a playoff setting. So there's going to be lots of tinkering there. They call him Tinkering Ty for a reason. I just think they're going to be a little bit behind in wins. So it wouldn't even surprise me if they were 3rd or 4th, actually. But I mean, they do have a ton of depth. So even if Kawhi's out, I mean, you just start like Norman Powell and shift Paul George to the small forward. Marcus Morris is out. You play Robert Covington or Nick Batum, who are better than Marcus Morris. They have a lot of guys. Like Luke Kennard and Amir Coffey might not be in the rotation. Amir Coffey's definitely not in the rotation.
Yeah, so like that's the thing is like I just think the Clippers' depth plus Ty being a great coach. If Kawhi and Paul George can have decent health, I think they're going to end up being the 1 seed. I just think that they were a play-in team without either of those guys, and I think that they got like their depth is just insane. I'm very much a believer in the Clippers this year. So I said I have Clippers, Timberwolves, Nuggets, Warriors. I think the Warriors more so just because I don't think they're going to care as much about the regular season. This Draymond thing, he might be suspended to start the year. We'll see. I have them a little bit lower. The Nuggets are probably the one team I could see being the 1 seed just because of Jokic.
Yeah.
We'll see with them. I think the Timberwolves are going to really, really want one of those high seeds, and that's why I have them higher. And then let's talk about playoffs here, because let's pick our conference finals picks, and then let's pick who wins the conference finals and then who wins the finals versus our Eastern Conference matchup.
I will go Clippers Warriors 1-2 seeds. I think they will be in the conference finals. I do think the Clippers do beat their Jokic demons, or I guess they'd be playing. Yeah, they beat the Jokic demons. I think they win. They beat the Nuggets in the playoffs. I think they're much better equipped to do so this time, and they don't have Doc Rivers playing Montrezl Harrell against them, which they would have won that series if they had just not done that. They would have won that series.
It's true.
And I think they lose to the Warriors in the conference finals. But I do think the Warriors lose in the finals to the Bucks. That would be my pick.
So you have Bucks over Warriors in the finals. You have Clippers Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. You have the Warriors making it to the finals, just like I had with the Celtics. The Sixers finally getting over the hump, getting to the conference finals, and the Celtics beating them when they're there. So I have in my Western Conference Finals, I have the Warriors once again making it, and I have the Clippers. I might be shooting myself in the foot here a little bit. I have the Clippers making it to the finals. So I have the Clippers beating I guess would they play the Nuggets in the second round?
Yeah.
I think so. Okay. So wait, no, hold on. No, they would play the Warriors in the second round of my bracket.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they would actually, I have them beating the Warriors. I have the Nuggets and the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. And I have, what a nightmare it would be for Sixers fans if it's Nuggets Celtics in the finals. Would be just an absolute shoot me in the head moment, because they all hate the Nuggets and Jokic, and they all hate the Celtics, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Clippers Celtics finals. I hurt myself last year by going with teams with injury and weird vibes question marks with the Nuggets and Nets when we picked last year. I believe this is finally the year that the Clippers put it together. I believe that they get to the finals. And I believe that the Celtics beat them in the finals. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go I'm going to pick the Celtics to win the finals because I am just, I don't have a positive outlook on life. And I'm going to go. I think
the Celtics match up really well with the Clippers.
Yeah. I went back and forth on this for a while. And I'm like, does Kawhi get back to the mountaintop? Are the Clippers deep enough for it to matter? Is Paul George ever the same? But like, I'm gonna go Celtics over Clippers to win. It doesn't even need to make any sense in my mind. It makes sense that the Celtics would win the finals. Even the Sixers finally get over the hump, and then the Celtics beat them, and then they win the finals. That feels right in my brain. So I'm going Celtics over Clippers. I'm just going, but this is a weird vibe season. I'm going based on weird vibes because then we'll get all these redemption stories about like whatever the weird shit Udoka was doing, which we still don't even know the full details.
Which is weird.
Like, yeah, definitely weird. And like, we'll be like, they overcame and they did all, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, yeah. And then they raise the banner, and then I think they'll be ahead of the Lakers again, or they'll be tied with the Lakers. I can't remember. So there'll be a bunch of insufferable narratives, but I'd be happy for the Clippers, because they finally get over the hump, and then they get their throat stabbed just like the Sixers. I mean, it makes sense. The Clippers and the Sixers are just forever linked. We've talked about this before.
They are linked. I like, as much as I'm a Clippers doubter, just because, you know, I've covered and written and talked about the Clippers for so long. I think this could be their year. I think the year I think they will regret, you know, when we look back at this, is the bubble. I think in hindsight, it's so easy to be like, oh, they fell apart. They, you know, weren't mentally tough or whatever. I think if they don't go to the bubble, I think that year is actually the year they might have won the championship.
Yeah. Especially because Anthony Davis was hurt when COVID hit.
Yeah. I mean, I think they match up really well with the Lakers. I think they would this year. I think they did, even when the Lakers were better in that year. I think they have the best options to guard LeBron. Anthony Davis is a bit of an issue, but I think they can still do an okay job on him. And they just have more talent up and down the roster. They do now. They did back then too. I think that's the year they're going to regret. And a lot of it was out of their control. But I think that team was, when you look back at it, that team was really stacked, and just a lot of things went against them. But I mean, this year it's very possible. Like, I mean, Robert Covington is like their 10th man. and Robert Covington is still really good. Like, I guess Terrence Mann is probably their 10th man, but like, yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be
Terrence
really,
Mann
really.
is your 10th man? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's pretty. Some people think he's going to be out of the rotation in favor of Luke Kennard. I think it's going to be Terrence over Luke, but yeah, I mean, they're loaded. They're absolutely loaded, and it's just my skepticism of good things happening to the Clippers that holds me back. That I think if they're healthy, I think they probably have the most talent in the NBA, top to bottom.
Yep, I totally agree. All right, Rob. Thank you once again. If you want to hear part 1, go listen to the Patreon episode that we did where we talked about the Eastern Conference and some things that we touched on, but we talked about that in depth last week. Please follow Rob at RichHomieFlom. I'll put his Twitter in the description. Thanks, bud.
Yep. Have a good one.
Peace.